Warlords. Welcome to Saga Thursday, the show all about the skirmish miniatures game from Studio Tomahawk. Back with another faction review, talking with Patrick. Once again, Patrick, how's it going, my man?
Good, good.
Yeah, so back for round two, helping us out, fill out the Age of Crusades. You offered several choices for me. I took you up on Ordensstaat as not one of the more popular factions, a little difficult to play, I would say. So I was curious to hear your perspective on it, and I thank you for coming on. Have you played a lot of games with these guys? I guess what drew you to them? What kind of experience do you have with them?
Well, the Ordensstaat was the first faction in Age of Crusades that I started playing. I started, they were the first ones, and so I played them for quite a while, and then I moved on to the Byzantine, because I had played the last Romans in Age of Vikings, and I wanted to take a break from that.
Mm-hmm.
So I switched over to the Ordensstaat. So I've played them for a while, then I took a break because I played the Byzantine, then I moved on to the Spanish, and just recently I decided to put the Spanish down and get the Ordensstaats back out and playing a few games with them.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, they're probably one of the coolest as far as models go, and looking at them, the really iconic knights with the giant helmets, one of the few factions with a uniform, a paint scheme you can use, kind of, just the black and white if you want to do that. So I kind of want to run these guys myself sometime. They're on the radar because like their levy and foot guys, you could kind of use the settlers or conscripts of like the conquered areas. So like my pagan peoples models would represent those well. And then I would just, do the awesome knights for the hero, the hearth guard and warriors, all on horses, barded steeds. And, there'd be a big difference between the levy conscripts and the elite warriors. So I would like to do that sometime. But we're going to, I guess, learn the ins and outs of these guys today. And let's just, I guess, jump right in here, man. If it sounds good to you. For equipment, Warlord and Hearth Guards can be deployed just on foot, nothing special. They can be mounted on horses or equipped with heavy weapons. And do you have a preference there as equipment goes? Are they all viable, or what do you fancy?
For the Warlord, or
Warlord, and then maybe Hearth Guards if it's the same or different.
The Warlords, I typically use the mounted Warlord.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I've used most in the past. I've just started experimenting with the heavy weapon Warlord, and I like that a lot. It's a lot of fun to play. For the Hearth Guard, I've used all variations. I'll take the standard foot Hearth Guards, the heavy weapons, and the mounted. Maybe not all in the same game, but sometimes I do. Mm-hmm. They each are different, and they can have value depending on how you're using. For example, with some of the defensive abilities, the standard Hearth Guard with shields, they're really hard to take out. I mean, they're just rock solid. But then you can flip it around, and the heavy weapon guys, man, they can really hammer hard. I mean, you'll lose them, but if you've got a high value target and you want to send in 4 Hearth Guard with heavy weapons, it's kind of like the berserkers with the
Vikings. We're talking that level of mayhem and destruction. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, you go in there, and I call it my death squad. I don't plan on keeping them, but I go in there to annihilate whatever they're gonna hit.
That's awesome.
So they'll hit really hard with some of these abilities that the board has. It's kind of like the Vikings. I always thought they were like the Vikings of the age of, they were comparable to them in that, you go in these melee and it really enhances the melee. So you can take 4 Hearthguard and wipe out a big unit with it.
Awesome. Cool. Well, for warriors, they got plenty of options as well. Nothing special. Mounted on horses. They can be equipped with crossbows. And then I'll just say the levies are bows or javelins only. So this is one of those factions that can't take crossbow levies. So some people like bows or crossbows on levies or both, but you don't have the option here. So you actually have to go to warriors if you want crossbows. So are you taking some crossbow warriors, or are you leaving them at home?
No, I typically take them in almost every lineup that I'm using. I've got one lineup that I call my shooting lineup, where I'm taking 12 warrior crossbow with a banner, a war banner, and it's extremely effective when used properly. I mean, it does really, really well. But then there are other times where I'm taking, usually I'm taking about 9, because what I like to do, what I found with the warriors is if I take 2 units of warriors, I'll do 7 mounted and 9 with the crossbow. That gives me an extra dice for the shooting. And the mounted ones with the abilities they have can actually do better than an 8-pack. That if they went up against 8 warriors, they can actually do more damage with some of the abilities.
Okay.
There's only 7 of them. I mean, 6. Even with 6, you can get some pretty good hits in with them.
For levies, so as we get into the board here, it's one of those boards where you're actually, I don't know if there is another board where you're just sacrificing models outright. Even the Mutatawiya just have one ability, but I think there's multiple abilities here where you can trade your own troops away. So I'm guessing you need some levies for those abilities. Or are you taking levies or not?
Well, there are 5 abilities that you can sacrifice models. Now, with those abilities, you can always sacrifice a figure out of the unit because it always says within M. However, some of those abilities, it is very detrimental to sacrifice warriors or Hearthguard. So you are taking levies, and when I first started playing them, and like I said, when Age of Crusades first came out, this was my first warband. I just went with 2 packs of bowed levy, and basically it was all Hearthguard and bowed levy, and I did that for a while. And so you're sacrificing a lot, but there's a lot of value. There's value in both, whether you want the bow or the javelin. But the javelin levy are kind of unique in the way that they work with the board because of one of the abilities. They're actually very useful. There's an ability, Knockoaston, we'll talk about. And so the javelin levies, with that ability, become a little bit more useful at times. And I've kind of switched over to using more of the javelin. I still use some of the bow to get that, that L. But usually what I'm doing is, because you're always going to pair up Hearthguard with the levy. You want to have some levy near them. So that group of levies is usually, that's going out with the Hearthguard in the front line, that's usually javelin. Because they've got some utility before the melee engagement, which so it's useful.
Makes more sense. If kind of attack oriented levy versus
they're more attack oriented.
The bow levy, you would be hunkering down, and the rocky ground or the ruins you put down. So you're not necessarily using them like that, although I guess you always have the option.
Right. That was kind of the mistake when I first started playing them, is I would outstrip my levy, and once your Hearthguard get more than M away from your levy, you lose a lot of your abilities, and you don't really want that. You're moving those guys around together, and that makes your abilities work better.
Okay, cool. So it looks like so what the most recent incarnation, your 6-point build with these guys. What's the ratio here between the Levy Warriors and Hearthguard?
Well, I'm usually taking 1.5 of levy
Okay.
to 2 points of levy. You, you really, I've not done really well taking 1 point of levy. Maybe somebody can make that work. I don't know, but I've not done really well with just a single point of levy. I've always done better, with more than that. I'm trying to run 2 units of levy. Now I might be doing a 9 and 9. If I'm doing a point and a half, I've done 12 and 12. Or lately I've been trying 9, 9, and 6, and that seems to work really well. So I like that quite a bit. You're not going to get to activate the levy too much because a lot of your abilities require the dice that you're going to use. So, you don't want to have, I don't think you want more than 3 units of levy. I'm usually, if I got 3 units of levy, I've got one that's dedicated to the warlord. So he's moving it around with Wheel Bay. And then I can activate the other ones with an activation. But they also, nice thing about this faction is you get to activate all of them to move with one of the abilities. And so the levy can keep up with the front line. So it works that way.
Awesome. Well, that sounds good. So 1.5, 2 points of levy, and then are you just kind of even between Warriors and Hearthguard points, or are you just taking like 1 point of Hearthguard, or?
I'm probably running 2 to 3 points of Hearthguard. Like one build that I do a lot, I've got 3 points of Hearthguard, 1.5 points of levy, and 1.5 points of Warriors. That's what I call my shooting lineup. So I've got javelin or bowed levies, 2 units of 9, and then I've got a 12 pack of Warriors with a war banner, and then I've got 3 points of Hearthguard. But then I've been experimenting with the warlord with heavy weapons, and in that one I'm running 2 points of Warriors and 2 points of levies, and then 2 points of Hearthguard. Well, 1 point of Hearthguard, and then the lifeguard unit.
Okay.
And that one's kind of fun.
Yeah, we'll talk about the lifeguards kind of after we go through everything, I think. We were talking a little bit about those before we started chatting, and I definitely want to know more about them. So as far as the split goes, sounds like there's no magic recipe here, no secret sauce to the breakdown. Yeah, it sounds like there's a little bit of wiggle room there between the Warriors, Hearthguard, and Levy, which is great to hear. You don't want a warband with just one obvious way to run it. So, you got lots of options here with equipment, and it's cool. You can kind of mix and match to suit your play style. And let's get into those abilities here. And we are going to, up top, it's just the usual activations. Combat bonus, I believe, looks the same. Now, I think the rare is the shield. Is that right? These continental dice. It shouldn't be confused with those one. I think it's flip-flop. Where helmets are commons. The mounted
helmets are commons. The knights are the uncommons, and the shields are the rare.
Okay, good to know. So we're going to talk about tyrants here. And this is a common or uncommon die. It's a melee ability. You may reroll 3 attack dice, which fail to score a hit. And if you remove a friendly figure within medium of your unit as a casualty, you get to reroll 6 attack dice instead of 3. So one thing here I think is interesting, and I'm curious how you play it. It says you may reroll 3 attack dice. It doesn't say you may reroll up to 3 attack dice. I guess. Have you? How do you guys play? There's a hard. you can interpret it hard or kind of soft here. So most of the abilities like this say you may reroll up to 3 attack dice. So is it 3 exactly, or have you guys just been playing up to 3?
I just, I'm keeping it kind of loose, I guess. I just play it up to 3.
Okay, I think that's the way it should be played, but
yeah.
okay.
I mean, there's obviously some wording there that could be argued that you have to reroll 3, but like this is a really important ability for your warriors.
Mm-hmm.
If you're like, I'm starting to really like the mounted warriors because they'll come in, and you can actually use another ability to have 2 units attack, and so they're a long strike unit. They can come in if you go in with 7 against let's say you're going up against an 8-pack of warriors, so they got an armor 4. You're going to get 3.5 hits. Well, if you play tyrant, you're going to get to reroll 3 dice. It's almost perfect. Like it was made for that right there. And you will get ultimately 6 hits out of that 7-pack with tyrants, compared to the 4 hits that you're going to get from the 8 from your opponent. Obviously they're not playing any abilities; you're just using it as a baseline here. But throwing tyrants on, that's the ability you're using with your warriors when they attack all the time. And you're not sacrificing a model. I don't do that until I'm rolling more than 10 dice. So I'm not going to be doing that with a 6, 7, or 8-pack of warriors. So I'm not going to waste that. So yeah, you're just using tyrants a lot. It's actually one of their, I'm going to say it's one of their better abilities. I know people will disagree with me, but the reason I say that is I'm playing it almost every turn. Like it's getting played almost every turn. You can play it with your hearth guards and then sacrifice a levy, and now you get to reroll 6 dice, which really ramps things up. Or you can play it on your warriors, not sacrifice, and get a lot more out of them. So I tend to play a lot.
Yeah, I think for a common dice, this is a great ability. Just re-rolling 3 misses, kind of, gives you a little insurance against the dice gods interfering with your plans. I always got to love that. And so, like you said before, so you can, this is kind of like with Vikings and Valhalla. So your troops have already generated their attack dice when you're in melee. So, like if your unit is going to die, like regardless, the writing's on the wall, you could definitely remove if you think your unit's going to be wiped out anyways, you could just remove the friendly figure from your own unit and just get more. Like if you're shoving that's like 6 warriors into a 8-pack of Hearthguard with 16 attacks or something, and they pop something else, you're like, well, I'm not going down, but hopefully they can break down 1 Hearthguard with each of my warriors here, and that'll be a win. So I think that's a great little ability there. And so you will sacrifice if you can get a levy nearby, you will sacrifice a levy model to get 6 if you're like engaging Hearthguard or maybe like a Warlord or something like that. It's not automatic. It has to be the right target. Is that what I heard?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like if I've got a Hearthguard unit that's going against a high value target, and I'm rolling a substantial amount of dice, if I can sacrifice a levy, I will, and that'll give me 6 extra rerolls, which is actually significant, especially if you couple it with Marshal Pride. Like if you're like really making a serious attack, Tyrants and Marshal Pride, it does a lot of damage. That combination is really, really good because the Marshal Pride will give you +1 on those dice. So you're going to get a lot of hits. The one thing about the Ordensstaats, I always compare them to the Vikings, but the Vikings generate a ton of dice. The Ordensstaats improve your dice. Like it's the same sort of idea because you got the sacrificing and stuff, but instead of rolling a bucket load of dice here, what you're doing is you're making your dice more effective, and it's really good at doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Just kind of glancing at the rest of those abilities. And so I guess one last thing, if you're re-rolling your failed hits here, and you're running Hearthguard, it seems to me like you could use the enemy's fatigue to buff your armor. And, because if you're, typically if you're going to reduce your fatigue down to the enemy's armor down to 2s with their fatigues or something, then, re-rolls could be nice, just to get those 1s out of there. But this way you could jack your armor up, and then with the re-rolls, just kind of keep them as is and kind of keep your own guys alive. Kind of gives you that option. I've kind of been thinking about that a lot, and I've been playing some Age of Magic, and I've been using that kind of approach on my last few games. So that kind of just made me think of that as we were discussing this one. But good ability, a lot of thoughts about it. And let's move on to Din of Battle, another melee ability. This one is the uncommon or the rare. Place a fatigue on the enemy unit. Ooh, that's good. Straight up. Gotta like that. If you use a rare, place another fatigue on a second enemy unit within medium of your unit. Looks like there's a downside here. You must reroll all your defense dice, which cancel a hit. So, looks like an ability probably reserved for the levies. I don't know. Would you use this one a lot here, or what are you thinking?
I actually kind of, was asking people like what was the worst ability, and this one actually came up a couple of times.
It's tough, yeah. Every hit against you is gonna kill a guy.
It can be effective. It is extremely situational, and what I found it to work is typically like mid to late game, you might get in a situation where you've got a warlord with some fatigue on it, for example. And I just did this recently, and it was extremely effective. And then if there's another unit near that warlord, if you attack that other unit, let's say, because what happened to me is there was a warlord, and they ended up with 3 warriors next to a warlord with 1 fatigue, after a round of combat. Well, I had a unit of Hearthguard. If I went in and attacked the warlord straight up, he's rolling 8 dice. I was rolling 8 dice, and I was like, wait a minute here. If I attack the 3 warriors, they're only rolling 3 dice. It's not like they're going to kill, because I'm going to go in. They're going to get a fatigue. I raised my armor to 6, and I wiped out the 3 warriors. Well, guess what? I'd placed a fatigue on the warlord with Din of Battle, and then when I wiped out the 3 warriors, he was exhausted.
Yeah.
And then I activated my crossbow to shoot, and he died.
Took him down. Oh, I like that. Yeah. That's kind of cool.
And I didn't lose a single figure. If I'd have gone straight in with the warlord, I probably would have lost a Hearthguard or 2. Maybe I don't know if I'd have killed him, because you still had to get 3 more casualties through. But this way I had, exhausted the warlord, and then I just shot him with the crossbow and took him out, doing that. So it can be used, and one way you can think about it is if you've got a situation where you've got a high value target next to another unit. You can either go in there with depleted, like say you've sacrificed a bunch of levies out of 1 unit, there's 3 left. You can charge in with those guys, play Din of Battle, and then put another fatigue on another unit that you want to go into, but it'd be nice to have that fatigue to either up your armor or lower theirs. And that allows you to do that ahead of time. And you're kind of sacrificing a unit. Maybe you're going to take out a few figures. Maybe you'll even knock out a depleted unit doing that. The other thing is if you go in with a foot Hearthguard unit on one of their depleted units, bump your armor up to 6, and if they're only rolling 2 or 3 or maybe 4 dice, it's not likely that they're going to get any hits on that. And so you can do it that way, and then hopefully that'll put a fatigue on another unit. The only disadvantage is you've got to put a rare on it
For the
to
double.
put that second.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, late game, if you do roll a rare and you have that situation, it is a way of possibly eliminating a unit, either the warlord or a high value unit, without actually having to engage them ahead of time. And so it can be used, but it is very situational. You won't be able to do that every game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I didn't consider if you're armor 6, not such a big deal having to re-roll. And then, depending on what's going on, you can get additional defense dice with this board to kind of smooth that out. But yeah, I guess think about it. If using this ability on your 80 or Hearthguard, terrible. You're using this ability on one levy, it still does everything that it does, but that one, he was going to die anyways. So this kind of is really interesting. If they leave those little 1 or 2 or 3 figure units that are all beat up towards the end of the game, if they leave those there, you have a real option with Din of Battle here to get some utility out of those even at the end of the game, where other warband, you'd probably just leave those guys, but you can really get some bang for your buck. I mean, just with the uncommon, if you can get a levy, that one levy into their warlord, put a fatigue on him, and then he gets a fatigue after the fight. That's 2 fatigues. If he has 1 from something else, boom. That's when you break out the crossbows, like you say.
Right. Yeah. And you gotta. It's good late game, mid to late game. You're probably not going to do this when you've got a bunch of really fresh units going against fresh units. But it's a good value putting a fatigue on them, because like if you put that fatigue on them and you lower their armor or raise your armor, that's a big win right there. So it's a good way of doing that, especially like the other way of using it is because you've got another ability where you can charge with two units, and it doesn't specify what those units are. So it can be levy, warriors, Hearthguard. So since you're always pairing a Hearthguard with a levy unit, and you're coming up against another target, you can play Slay the Pagans, send in a unit of 3 levy that you have left, like they're all depleted. Hit that unit, play Ding of Battle. Now that unit has 2 fatigues on it after their melee. And you can charge in with your unit now, for the second charge, the Hearthguard unit, and they've got a big advantage now because you've got 2 fatigues to play with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So even just doing it with the uncommon and charging the same unit with a depleted unit and then one of your better units, it can be a big advantage.
Absolutely. Awesome. Yeah, another fun one. Lots of possibilities here. All right, let's move on to the bottom left there. Serfs. This is a uncommon or rare activation reaction. Trigger this ability after a charge is declared against one of your levy units, but before it's resolved, remove a figure from your unit as a casualty and activate it to move or make a shooting attack against the charging unit. So presumably you could move out of range, just cancel the charge completely, or get your shots in. Not too bad. I guess if you are shooting, you got to make sure most of your guys are in range before the enemy moves. So, I think, does that make sense?
Yeah. No, one tip with this is like you can take your levy units and position them outside of terrain. As long as you're like all within S, if a unit tries to charge, and because I had a guy do this to me once, I played this, moved out of range, really double activated and charged, and so what I started doing is standing next to terrain, and then you can actually retreat into the terrain.
Let's go, boys! Come on! Let's get.
You know, it's like you're like, okay, all right, you got to come into the woods to get me. You know, sorry. So that made it harder for a second charge against your levy unit. I'll say that most people, if you haven't played the Ordensstaat too much, you probably don't have to worry about that. But if your opponents play the Ordensstaat long enough, they'll figure that out and line up 2 units to charge, and you'll move out of the way of one and you get creamed by the second one. Like I started, like trying to keep them close to some terrain or something like that, so I could move them out if I decided to. If I can cancel the charge, I'm going to do that. I'm not going to shoot. If I can't cancel the charge, then I'm going to shoot. But yeah, you do have to be in range. But canceling that charge, they just wasted a Saga dice. That's a huge win for you, because they've just burnt a Saga dice, and those are really valuable resources. And I know you've burnt one too, but if they're putting Saga dice in their charges and stuff like that, and you've had that. I usually put that dice on them early and leave it there, and then I'll play it, and that might leave one of the opponents in a vulnerable position, so I can follow up on my turn. It also, I've seen it make people hesitate. They just they are more reluctant to charge your levy because of that ability.
Especially, if you have mounted hearth guard or something, you're gonna think twice about. He's got 4 shots. Is it gonna be worth? Yeah, it's gonna take out.
Right.
You don't want to provoke the dice gods into taking action, I guess, if you can help it. So, So this is 1, 2 where just having it up, like you say, they can play around it, but they have to use dice to play around it. So they have to load up an extra, warrior activation to do it a second time, or, that might not even be positive. If you move away, they move away. They have to use multiple units to kind of do the pincer to kind of really get them. So if they're spending 2 or 3 dice to do that because of your 1 dice, I think that's a good trade. All right. So we talked about Marshal Pride a little bit. This one is a common and uncommon together. Your melee ability, your attack dice get a +1 bonus. So +1. Finally, something with no down. I guess Tyrants doesn't have a downside unless you want to voluntarily do it, but it's a ability that just gets you the +1 for 2 dice though. So do you usually have 2 dice available to load this one up? Some people, just as a rule, don't like using the 2 die abilities. Is this one worth it in your opinion?
I do use it a lot with the warriors, but I'll also use it with Hearthguard too. It is one of the better melee abilities because there's no sacrifice, and it's just a straight up +1, which actually is pretty effective, especially if you couple it with a fatigue on another unit.
Maybe
you can drop
maybe a heavy weapon +1 as well.
Yeah. I've done that. Well, like with the heavy weapon Hearthguard. Oh my gosh, yeah, they're coming in hitting with a +2 basically. They get a lot of hits that way. It can be really valuable. The thing about the board, it's nice. Like, you will have the dice if you do your lineup correctly.
Oh, okay.
I usually like to start with at least 7 Saga dice, because you have another ability that allows you to activate 2 units, doesn't matter what they are, for a charge, as long as they're within S, which most of your units are going to be within S. And I'll talk about it later when we get to another ability, Knockoaston. You can create a situation with Knockoaston, because you're going to move everything, where you get the 2 units you want within S, and then they can charge for 1 dice. So you're not putting as many dice in activations.
Got some efficiency there to play
there's efficiency too.
So, okay, cool. Yeah, so the 2 dice, not that big a deal. +1 bonus. Yeah, combo with heavy weapons. That'd be awesome. I guess technically javelins too, but probably won't be generating that many attacks. So the more attacks you have already, the better this +1 gets. And then just going after some real hard targets. The highest they can increase their armor is a 6. And with the +1, you're hitting on 5. There's nothing they can do about it. You're going to hit on a 5 or a 6. There's no 6 or auto miss. And if, hitting on 5s with a combo with Tyrants that reroll, they might have thought their Warlord was pretty safe with armor 6 and your fatigue going in or something, but you can definitely sneak some damage through.
Yeah, I actually pair this a lot with my 7-pack of Warriors with Tyrants, Marshal Pride and Tyrants. Like if I want them to come in and hit hard, they'll get some good hits on it doing that. But also the heavy weapon Hearth Guard. When you want them to make some serious damage, they'll do it with that.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's pop down. We referenced it a couple times. Slay the Pagans here. This is a common or uncommon. Activate 2 of your units within short of each other to charge. And yeah, 2 for 1. The only downside, you have to be within short. Don't have to sacrifice a model or anything. So this one looks good here. For the sequence of events, do you have to, how do you play this? Do both units declare their target up front and then you resolve them one at a time, or do you resolve the first one and then the second unit? I mean, you nominated the second unit to charge, but you haven't declared a target. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well,
how do you,
I don't. The way that I do it is, it says you always resolve, you do it in sequence. So
yes,
I'll activate them. I'll declare, okay, this one's going to charge. They charge, do the melee. This one's going to charge, do the melee. That's just the way that I do it.
Okay.
I mean, if you want to declare them both, one little tip with this one. If you plan on charging the same target, let's say you're going into, they've got one good unit left and you want to hit it twice and you do this. It's really good to pair a foot with a mounted.
Oh, okay.
Because sometimes if you go in and you charge, let's say you win the melee and they have to retreat S, they might retreat out of range of the second charge. And then that would cancel your second charge. But if you're coming in with a mounted unit, they probably are not going to retreat out of range, and you'll still be able to get to them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, if you push them too far, but if you do too well, push them back. And
right. Yeah. You're thinking like, oh, I'm going to soften them up with the first unit, and then you do really well, and then all of a sudden you push them out of range, and you're like, oh man, I didn't go in with my best unit, now I can't get to them. So. What I do a lot of times to set that up is when I start the melee, before I get into Slay the Pagan, I'll play Knockoaston. That allows a movement of S. You can be L away. You can have 2 Hearthguard units L away and get them within S with Knockoaston for a double charge. So, I can move a mounted unit forward and move another Hearthguard unit laterally, and all of a sudden they're within S. And bang, they can go at the same target or they can go at different targets.
Yeah, that's great. And then another thing here, since it's a common or uncommon, this is a way to activate levies without having to use your uncommon or rare dice. They have to charge, but you can activate 2 levies for a common die. That's awesome. Not a lot of boards can pull that off.
That's a pretty routine move is activate your Javelin levies, charge, and then activate the Hearthguard, charge, and then they can actually, if they want, sacrifice levies to enhance the second charge. So if you go in and the levies get beat up, go in and play a different ability and make your Hearthguard Superman and go in and mop it up. And it costs you 1 dice.
I'm starting to see it. The levies going first. They're on foot. You use Din of Battle or if you
Yeah.
can. Otherwise, then the Hearthguard or warriors coming after them. The levies got beat up. They bounce back, but they're still within medium or short of your unit, and you can sacrifice a couple of them to get some rerolls on your attack dice. Yeah, sounds good. I'm starting to see the vision here.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go to Knockoaston here. So this is, I don't know, Monty's called this one the keystone, the linchpin of the whole board here. It's a rare activation ability. Activate all your units for a move, which does not generate fatigue. During this activation, their movement distance is short, no matter what their usual stuff is. And this activation is ignored when calculating fatigue for later activations. So you've got the no fatigue up front. It's not going to cost you down the line. So sometimes activating all units, depending on the sequence, you might not want to activate a unit again if it's going to take a fatigue or something, but there's no downside to this one at all. This is awesome. The problem is getting that rare loaded up. Sometimes, we are denied the rares, which are our rightful destiny. So what you can do a lot with this ability, I imagine. So what are some shenanigans we can pull with this, or how are we using this one?
Well, they're basically there's lots of things you can do with it, but there's like 4 that I can use it for. Like, you are not wrong. This is the keystone ability. If you can play this 2 or 3 times a game, you will probably do really well. It is super beneficial. If when I'm rolling enough rares to play this a lot, you're going to do well. First, this is a very fast, aggressive faction. Early game, Knockoaston, you're pressing everything forward, and you're moving everything. And remember, you can activate a unit to move, play Knockoaston. It moves again, doesn't get a fatigue.
Yeah.
Now, all right. Now, where does that come into play? Your javelin levy. All right. So you can't, somebody's like, oh, they're not close enough to get me. Not a big deal. Well, guess what? You activate and move them M. Then you activate Knockoaston. They move S, which is another 4 inches. Now they've moved 10 inches. Even if they were L away and they're like, oh, they're too far away. Now they're within range and they get a free shoot with no fatigue.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then I think probably what you're thinking too, then on the flip side with your crossbows or bows, you're in range, you shoot, and then you scoot. You get the heck out of there. Retreat back into the woods, or that must be one of the other 4 you're probably thinking of there.
Now the crossbow are special because this is actually one of the things that makes them so nice, because you can shoot with the crossbow, do your Knockoaston, move everything the way you want it, but when you move those crossbow a second time,
or even they just stand in place, but a move activation was performed.
Get to activate them again and shoot, and there's no fatigue on the shoot
at the beginning.
And if you've got a war banner, you can remove that fatigue at the start of the next turn, because you'll get 1 after the second shot. But it's after the shot, so they're still shooting with that +1. They can't spend the fatigue to raise their armor.
Yeah, that's awesome. Double shots with the crossbows. Very tricky to pull it. I can't think of any other board that has the ability to activate the same crossbow unit. Usually you're just one and done. But with Knockoaston, you've got the option. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of my preferred lineups. I've got 3 that I like to use. Uses 12 crossbow warriors with a war banner, and when I'm playing that, I am trying to shoot twice a turn, every turn. So they're kind of like the focal point, and I'm protecting them with foot hearth guards. And the other thing, the thing about the Knockoaston too. This goes back to Slay the Pagans. The last thing that I use it for is what I call battle maneuvers. I'm sliding units one way or another, opening up line of sight for a shot, shooting, or then moving in to protect, or moving 2 units together to play Slay the Pagan. But that can sometimes throw a curveball in your opponent. They're thinking of a strategy and they're like, oh, he's going to attack with these. Next thing you know, you slide a unit over. I've done that with the crossbows where I take a shot at one unit and then slide it over and then, wow, I'm in range of this unit.
Yeah.
Wow, I get to shoot it now, And they were thinking they were safe from the crossbow unit, and then, you hit that unit again. You can use it to open up a line of sight for a mounted unit to make a long distance charge. So like they're coming in behind your front line, you use the Knockoaston and open up a window, slide your mounted hearth guard forward, and all of a sudden, bam, they can charge. So that actually can throw a pretty good loop in people's battle plans. Just moving, once you get into contact, sliding your troops around, and you're dictating the engagements. You're saying, okay, you've got to attack my foot hearth guards this turn, but guess what? I'm going to shoot you to pieces with my crossbow because I'm going to slip them out of the way. And, so you're moving them around quite a bit. And that's the cool thing about the board, is that movement, that ability to move troops around and kind of dictate where the engagements are. If you play the Ordensstaat, you will get really good at positioning units. That's the key, like being able to position units and visualize where I'm going to move this unit and that unit to direct this engagement. You get really, really good at that with this particular faction.
Yeah, well worth the rare dice, and yeah, so much you can do with this. Such a fun ability, no downsides at any point, and yeah, I guess one last thing.
Well, there's one downside.
What's the downside?
Mercs.
Okay.
Mercenaries. You cannot activate a mercenary with Knockoaston, and that will cancel the activation unless they're loyal.
Okay. Well, that's a good point to keep in mind. Yeah.
So if you're playing like scouts,
yeah.
you've basically taken this ability off your board.
Oh no, thank you. Mercs, stay at home. We're not doing that. One other thing you can use it for, you can charge in, and then a lot of times, the Hearthguard or Warlord, they want to get the heck out of there, retreat. But you got the fatigue for the fight, so if they slow you down to short, that's annoying. You lose the fatigue, it's annoying. But at least with Knockoaston, you've got a short on top of that.
I use it to retreat a lot of times. It's good.
You can Knockoaston retreat more than short, so you're going to be out of medium of whoever you just fought, hopefully other units, and then if you need to move further, then you can still retreat again with a die. So so much you can do with it. Gotta get that rare though. But yeah, this is a lot of fun. Well, let's keep it going here to Zealous Works. Shooting reaction, pretty simple here. Put a fatigue marker on your unit to increase its armor by 2. So if you're exhausted, can you not use this then? Is that because you can't, or is it slough off? Is it clarified in the verbiage at all?
It does not. It does not. That's a good question that I don't have an answer to.
Okay. I keep raising questions here. Sorry. I thought you were the man with all the answers, Patrick. Just immortal like the rest of us.
No, that's a good question. I don't know. It doesn't clarify that in the book.
Okay.
I don't know. I've never seen it in FAQ. It's never explained that in the book.
I've never seen anybody use this ability either. So maybe you do. I don't know. When are you using this one?
Oh, I use it quite a bit.
Okay. So it's worth it to you.
Yeah, if you got a set of, like say you got some bowed warriors and, they're going to get a
crossbow
shooting
warriors.
Attack. Yeah, it bumps up the armor. you know, like if you got your crossbow warriors with the war banner, and you know, you can take that fatigue off. Um, the other thing is your mounted units. Like you want, let's say there's a ranged unit in the open. So uh, you know, you're within L. Well, they're going to get a shot on your mounted unit on their turn before you can charge. Let's say, um, you know, you can take your mounted units up to armor 6, and then on your turn just remove the fatigue and charge in. You know, if you wanted to do that, I do use it. Particularly when I'm pressing a line, like when I'm moving forward in the early game, I'll put a dice on that. Now, I may pop it off once I get into charge range and then re-roll that dice and put it on a different ability. But as I'm moving through, you know how you're always like, well, because this is kind of a melee faction. I mean, you can make a shooting, like, don't get me wrong, you've got 11 different options when it comes to troops. There's only 2 other factions in Age of Crusades that have more. So you've got lots of options. You can make a shooting, you know, thing out of it, but it's really a melee faction. So you're pressing into a faction that does a lot of shooting. You know, until you get into that melee range, this will help protect some of your troops. It's not the best ability. It doesn't. I don't use it late game, but in those in early game, maybe even some into mid game, I'll put it on there just to deter the shooting. And you'd be surprised when you get armor up to 6 how few, like you will not get any casualties. You know, you're just not going to get any casualties. You know, from eight warriors with bows shooting at you. They're not going to hit anything.
Yeah, I like the idea of keeping those crossbow warriors alive. You know, you're probably going to have them castled up pretty good. So, you know, ideally, the only thing they can do to them is shoot them, and you know, having extra armor against that very valuable. And I guess, yeah, it kind of depends on, you know, how they're planning to follow up or not. You know, if they can try to engage that unit in melee afterwards, you know, you may think twice. But you know, if they're just kind of shooting unsupported, you know, and you're going to have your own turn to rest and keep going, yeah, sounds good to me. All right.
Yep.
We got another shooting reaction, also a melee ability, Sword Brothers, using the uncommon or rare. Hearth guards are heroes only. Gain 2 defense dice, 4 if you use a rare. And you may remove a friendly figure within medium of your unit as a casualty in order to gain 3 additional defense dice. So if you're using a rare here, you could get up to 7 defense dice. So that's pretty good. 5 without a rare, but you do have to sacrifice a guy. And then this one's probably good enough. You don't need to sacrifice a model. I guess when are you using this one here? I mean...
it gets used when I'm with Hearthguard. It'll use it in a couple of different ways. It's a really good ability, first of all. I use it, I'll place dice on there, whether it's a common or uncommon or a rare, it doesn't matter. And I use it in the early game while I'm advancing. If the opponent gets an early charge, say they get to charge my line before I get to do anything, I'll use it defensively. And it can really beef up your Hearthguard unit. You know, I mean, it makes them really strong, and they don't have to be necessarily, you know, because you're always going to pair them with the levy, and if you get, you know, somebody charging, and they're playing a lot of abilities, thinking they're going to wipe out that Hearthguard unit early, and they're just going to bounce off of that, and that's you know, that's really good. The second time I play this is I pair it with another ability, and you know, I pair it with Dark Crosses, Pure Hearts. When I do play that ability, I'll talk about that. If you don't play Sword Brothers, you will hurt yourself on Dark Crosses and Pure Hearts. Sword Brothers makes the Dark Crosses, Pure Hearts viable, and it's really good to play with a heavy weapon warlord with a lifeguard unit.
All right, I like the sound of that. Yeah,
he is a tank, and he will. I mean, he's going to do a lot of damage, and you're not going to touch him. You will come away with 1 fatigue from, you know, from casualties, and then 1 from the melee at best. But it really makes them really, really tough, because you're combining that resilience. I usually go in with that unit. I'm going in with 10 attack dice, resilience 2, and coupling that with Sword Brothers. You're only going to get one fatigue at best.
Yeah. This one, you know, so we know in Crusades, they're kind of pushing Hearthguard on us, whether we want them or not. A lot of the boards have specific Hearthguard abilities. So the Ordensstaat, we're finally getting to those. And yeah, this one's great. I mean, you can see, you know, you got plenty of defense dice for those foot Hearthguard when you're closing ranks. You know, you can see how nothing's going through. But then, like you say, with the heavy weapons, you know, I'll block on 5, you know, 5 defense dice. You know, I want to take you down. Or if with your mounted guys, you have extra defense against shooting. You know, very, very good. So, yeah, on some of those other abilities, you know, you have these trade-offs: sacrifice a model, take a fatigue, reroll defense dice. Yeah, I'm really on some of those wondering if it's really worth it or not. But I think peeling a levy model for 3 defense dice on your warlord or Hearthguard is definitely worth it. It's no brainer in my opinion. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, and you said it, like, when you get charged and you're standing there with your Hearthguard next to your levy unit, you close ranks, you sacrifice a model, you're not going to lose a single Hearthguard.
There's no way. Yeah. And this is so strong. They really, you know, I would try to play around it, or, you know, this is going to change your opponent's battle plan. You have to plan if you want to take out these Hearthguard, that you're going to do nothing the first one and have a second one followed up, or, you know, you really need to push that levy unit away and, you know, allocate resources to try and clear from medium. But, you know, medium, that's a big bubble to try and clear. So it's going to be very difficult to do that. So, yeah, Sword Brothers, great abilities. One of the ones that'll get used for sure. I remember playing Monty in the Pagan Peoples Baltic Ordensstaat campaign. He always had this one queued up against some shooting. So great ability. And let's get into Dark Cross's Pure Hearts. You mentioned that one. That one, I don't know, it's kind of interesting. In some ways, it does the same thing. I guess I'll read it out here. 2 uncommons for this one. Hearthguards or heroes. So take some extra dice. Remove up to 6 friendly figures within medium of your unit's casualties. For each one removed, gain 2 attack or 2 defense dice. So you could do the same thing. Just load up a bucket of defense dice. On the flip side, you can get a bucket of attack dice. Now the two dice for 1 model removed. I don't know. The 3 sounded better in Sword Brothers, but so you talked about comboing both of these. So are you just a bucket of attack dice and a bucket of defense dice in a big combat here? How are you using them?
Well, first of all, let me caution you from using Dark Cross's Pure Hearts. If you're going to use it, you've got to go all in.
Okay.
Like you're going to be sacrificing, you know, 5 or 6 models.
It takes 2 dice to begin with, so you're already allocating quite a bit of resources to
there's a lot of resources.
Move and 2 dice.
And the second, yeah, I did a statistical analysis of this, and you know, like I've ran 9 scenarios where you know you're going to, you know, you're taking 4 Hearthguard and running them against levies, warriors, Hearthguard, different combinations, and you will actually lose VP points or break even until you're sacrificing, you know, 5 or 6 models. That's when it starts to get good. And the way you do it is you're either going to use this with a Lifeguard unit and a Warrior Lord, or a unit of 5 or more Hearthguard.
Yeah.
Because you have to sacrifice 5 levy and gain 10 attack dice. Then you're going to play Sword Brothers, sacrifice another levy. That's your 6. And then that's going to gain you either 5 or 7, depending on whether it was a rare, defense dice. When you do that, that's going to make your Hearthguard very durable and tenacious. You're going to roll 20 attack dice. And that's where you're going to come out ahead when you do that.
If you get Marshal Pride, we said the more dice you have, the better it gets. +1 on 20 dice. Yeah, I like that.
And now let me paint a picture here. And this is why the heavy weapon Hearthguard is so much fun to play. You're charging in with a heavy weapon Hearthguard. You play Dark Crosses, and you're going in with 10 attack dice, resilience 2. Now all of a sudden you're rolling 20 attack dice, and then you play Sword Brothers and gain 5 or 7 defense dice. He's going to this. I might even throw Tyrants in or something, or maybe Marshal Pride into. I mean, he pretty much steamrolls whatever he hits.
+2, yeah.
Yeah, and like every time I do that, he pretty completely annihilates just about whatever he's going against. So and he's not gonna die. You're not gonna. With that, you've got great defense. You've got resilience 2. You've got 5 or 7 defense dice. I know his armor's 4, but if you wanted to, you could throw Ding a Battle on and or attack something with a fatigue. But he's not going to get a lot of casualties, and so you're not going to end up with a lot of fatigues on that. The thing about it is you're only going to do that once or twice a game.
Yeah, there's not that many levies in the queue.
Right. I mean, you can't
keep it powered up.
I can imagine myself going down with with one heavy weapon warlord lifeguard unit and 5 points of levy chasing around the board. Now that's that's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
The downside of the heavy weapon warlord. Is not that combo. That combo is great. The downside is mobility. If you're going against cavalry based, he has a trouble catching them. So I always have some mounted troops to chase stuff down if I need it. But that's that one melee where you're going to take out a real high value unit. Maybe like I could go up against an 8-unit Hearthguard and probably come close to eliminating that unit. That guy.
Certainly. You'd have to crunch the math. I think you could either just outright.
That's what I call him.
Otherwise, add Marshal Pride if that's not going to add Tyrants. Yeah.
I mean, it's going to knock him out. But don't play that ability. Don't play Dark Crosses, Pure Hearts, and then sacrifice 2. You're either going to sacrifice 3 or 6, because if you're sacrificing levy, you're going to lose. As soon as you sacrifice 1, you've lost a VP point. So you might as well sacrifice 3. If you sacrifice 4, you might as well do 6 because you've lost a VP point. Because you want to get the most out of it. The ability, you could use the ability more if, for example, it said you got 2 attack dice and 1 defense dice. Then you could use it for smaller engagements. But it really mathematically, it doesn't really get good until you've drawn into it pretty deep.
Sure. Okay. Well, yeah, I was pretty down on this ability, but I think you've painted a picture here where it could be worth it. And beware, I guess. I don't know if I'm going to take a 6 or 8 pack of Hearthguard against you. I might change my composition specifically because of this.
To be fair, this ability can turn around and bite you.
Sure.
I'm going to be honest with you. It can be streaky. I'll be honest with you there. It's not my favorite ability because it can be streaky, and it's not like Valhalla which is giving you 3 dice, I believe. So you got to be real careful because you're already getting it's 2 dice, 2 uncommons. That's expensive. You are sacrificing, so just use it sparingly and use it when it's the big one. That's why, like most of my engagements, I'm going to pair. If I'm doing a Hearthguard, I'm going to do Marshal Pride with Sword Brothers. If I'm doing Warriors, I'm going to use Tyrants and Marshal Pride. Not all the time, but that's typically what I'm doing. When I get to the big engagement, like, okay, this is the big one, then I'm going to pull the Dark Crosses, Pure Hearts, Sword Brother combo. And then I'm going to go all in. And I want to do it with typically a unit of 5 Hearthguard. Now, I will say, I do play, I call it the Death Squad. It's a 4-pack of heavy weapon Hearthguard. You can go in with that unit, and like you're going to die, and you can play Dark Crosses, Pure Hearts, and actually sacrifice your Hearthguard.
On top, okay. Yeah, you're really,
and
really going all in.
And go in. Yeah, and go all in. You're going to lose 4 VP points, but if you're going up against something where you can get 5 or 6 VP points out of it, or take out a critical unit, or say you've got to bust up a really tough front line, like somebody's turtled in and they're you're having trouble breaking them up. You can do that with those Hearthguard. The other thing that it works is if you go in and they've got their units all stacked in really tight, and you go in with your first charge with the 4-pack of heavy weapons and sacrifice them, and then you create that fatigue bomb, and then you put fatigues on everything. And I would be using Ding of Battle with that too. But it's not great doing that, but it's kind of like if it's one way that I've used the 4 heavy weapon Hearthguard. But it's got to be in a situation where you can get their armor down. You're going to get a lot of hits. I just see if I can remember the math on it.
Well, you made the case. I'm gonna have to keep that in mind.
Let's see.
Right. Well, you're looking that up.
Yeah. You can get with Tyrants. On that, I think you can get like 16 hits on a, because some guys are playing like 12 packs of Warriors. You can knock out 10 to 12 of those Warriors with that 4-pack of heavy weapon Hearthguard.
Yeah, that could be worth
using that ability. Yeah, you play that with Tyrants, and you can take out those Hearthguard. If I remember right, I was doing the math on it. Actually, before you called, I think it's 10 to 12 Warriors. So you can almost eliminate a 12-pack of Warriors with those 4 Hearthguard.
That's good, man. Not too shabby. All right, last one here, Servants of God. Orders ability. Using a uncommon or rare, remove 1 to 3 friendly figures as casualties. Take that many available Saga dice. Roll them, place them on your battle board. Place one showing the face of your choice instead of rolling it if you used a rare. So you do have activation pool. So you can, with a rare, you can roll 2 dice without having to sacrifice anybody. It's the difference here is an uncommon will get you some extra dice, but you have to sacrifice. I'm trying to think, using a rare, I don't know. Would you use a rare here or activation pool? If you want.
I'll typically. This is a really good ability, and I'll tell you what I like to do is I try and in turns 1, 2, or 3, I try and put a rare here, and then I'm going to save it because like you've said it yourself. It's a kind of a game of tick for tat. Like you go in, you kill some, they come in, they kill some, and boom, boom. Let's say late game, we're talking turns 5 or 6, especially turn 5. If you have this set up with a rare on turn 5, you can really change the last turn. What I'm going to do is, like by that time you're down to say 4 Saga dice. Your opponent's down to say 4 Saga dice. Well, wouldn't it be nice to roll 7 or 8 Saga dice on your last
Yeah,
turn?
it's like a guaranteed cascade of
Right.
activation pools.
Exactly.
And
So like, I've started playing a small. Sometimes on some of the lineups, I'll have a small group of levy, mainly to generate Saga dice. They're not really getting into it, but it's for late game playing this ability. I can sacrifice 3. Now I can load the board with 7 dice, and it's like we're starting from scratch again. And they're at a disadvantage in that I'm coming at them with 7 dice on my turn, and they're only coming at me with 4 dice on theirs.
mm-hmm.
And it's part of Saga is managing the Saga dice resource,
Yeah.
and this is a great way of late game. But you can also use this ability if you throw a rare on it early. You can actually recharge it for late game. Let's say you get a bad
just
roll.
keep it going. Yeah, put the rare back.
Keep it going. Roll the dice, because it doesn't say you can't do this. It says you may, you can place one of your choice. Well, I'll roll it, and then, I take the dice that I want, and I place a rare back on the ability.
Mm-hmm.
So it keeps regenerating itself.
So you
Once you get that rare on,
can't activate it immediately, but for the following turn,
right,
it's
exactly.
ready to go.
You've got
it's
it for another
As long as
turn.
you get that. So if you get a couple extra rares, Knockoaston's going to be queued up first, I assume. But Servants of God is a number 2 spot for that rare. I like it.
Absolutely. Like, and I tell you, one time it saved my bacon. I got in a situation where I wasn't rolling Knockoaston, and I really needed it, and so I popped it, rolled 3 dice, and I rolled 2 rares, and I'm like, well, this is a no-brainer,
Mm-hmm.
I loaded it back up, and then I had 2 rares to throw on my board, because the third dice, I changed it to a rare, put it on Servants of God, and then I put Knockoaston, and I think I put the other one on Sword Brothers or something like that. But, it was like, it saved me. And then I actually still had it in the late game, to load that board up again and, make a lot of activations or throw on a lot of abilities or both, with 7 dice.
That's a great point. Putting the rare on here because, in that turn 4 or 5, you've loaded up Knockoaston first, but then turn 4 or 5, you get kind of skunked on the rare. And you pop Servants of God. You have the rare kind of guaranteed, so you get Knockoaston off on those critical mid to late game turns. Yeah, I like it. Seems worth it to me in the late game up front.
Yeah,
not so
I
much.
tried playing the Ordensstaats with the priest once, the bishop, actually, and I found that this ability was good enough. I didn't really need it, because like once you get you get this rolling, it pretty much keeps the board stacked the way you want it.
So, weren't a fan of the priest. Let's talk about the lifeguard. You referenced them multiple times. I think this could be a good. Sounds like it's a. I think the lifeguard are pretty good, but I think with the way some of these abilities work and the interactions with the board, they could be particularly useful. It sounds like you found them particularly useful, maybe more so than other factions.
They're almost essential.
Okay.
I hate to say that, but I think this faction was made for the lifeguard unit. They can take a lot of. Like they got the tribal hunters, the priest, Western Knights, scouts, lifeguard unit, Turcopoles, and troubadour. But really the only 2 you can take are the priest and the lifeguard, because otherwise you can't use Knockoaston. The lifeguard unit with Dark Crosses, Pure Hearts, and Sword Runners without that, Dark Crosses and Pure Hearts is not that great of ability. With a lifeguard unit, it actually works. Without the lifeguard unit, mathematically, I mean, I looked at it in many different ways. It's just not as good. But when you put it in with a lifeguard unit with that resilience, it becomes a really good ability.
Okay.
And again, my favorite combo is the because with the lifeguards, we should probably talk about
Yeah,
them.
so it's 1 point, and you get two
Yeah,
additional figures with the same equipment as your warlord, and they basically are kind of attached to him, like a heroic unit, so to speak.
hmm
Now, when they take part in a melee, you you can add their attack dice if you want. Otherwise, you can increase their resilience by 1 for each lifeguard still in play. So it sounds like the trade-off, if you go in, you can fight with 4 additional attacks, or you could boost yourself up to resilience 3, essentially, with the 2 lifeguard. Am I
correct.
saying? I'm just kind of reading it
Yep.
here as we go.
Yeah, your options are you can do 8 attack dice, resilience 3, 10 attack
Oh,
dice,
so you can mix
resilience
and
2.
match. Okay, yep.
Yeah, or 12 attack dice, resilience 1.
Okay. And then each slain lifeguard provides 2 massacre points. If they're both slain, they count as a eliminated unit when calculating massacre points. So in addition, they're like extra hit points for the warlord, even after resilience goes through.
Correct.
So your warlord has like 3 hit points essentially because you have your original guy and then the 2 extra. So you can see if you're going resilience 3, total defense, it can be very tough. Now, one thing is this is melee only for the resilience part of this. So against shooting, you would still be resilience 1, but you could sacrifice these lifeguard if you needed to.
Yeah, or you could play zealous works.
That's there. There you go. That's the time to use it.
Right. Like with your heavy weapon warlord, I'm sorry to interject here,
No.
but just with the heavy weapon warlord, like you've got, I think his armor is 5 against shooting. Like you're going to pump him up to 6. With the mounted, zealous works becomes, with the mounted
4 to
option,
6.
like say you
Yeah.
want to do, yeah, it goes 4 to 6. So with any warlord combination, your zealous works, it goes up to 6. And so you've got some durability against the shooting there. You also have bodyguards if you've got a Hearthguard unit nearby
Oh,
too.
oh,
So
yeah. Yeah. I like it.
basically, it is extremely hard to kill your warlord with the
Okay.
Ordensstaats
Yeah, and
when he's.
you would use the bodyguards absolutely first
Yep.
before, because these guys are worth double as far as VPs
Right.
go, and that they just reduce your warlords
And
capabilities.
usually when I'm moving in with the heavy weapon warlord, I've got a unit of levies. Usually I put like a 6-pack of levies right behind them for sacrificing. And then I've got a unit of Hearthguard, 4 standard, which are really durable. Um, and there's a pack of levies near them too. After a melee, I'll probably move those standard Hearthguard into a blocking position in front of the warlord. So you got to get through them first.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, but, sometimes you can't do that. But, if you can't, well, then you've got bodyguards. Basically, he's extremely hard to kill. They're going to have a real rough time doing it.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah, sounds a lot of fun. I don't know, the heavy weapon warlord with these guys, it just sounds so good, so fun. Sword Brothers, Dark Crosses, Pure Hearts. I like it. Yeah, so we've gone through all the abilities here. One thing is kind of a criminal classification here in the book as far as difficulty to play. They rate this one as being on the easy side. It's high up there. It's low difficulty to play. After going through everything, I don't agree with that assessment, because I think you have to be a good Saga player to know when these trade-offs of sacrificing your models make sense. And just running in, the first thing you're doing, Dark Crosses, Pure Heart, sacrificing six months. Like if you're a beginner at the game, you're not, you've painted a picture. There's really a specific time you want to do that, and most of the time it is kind of a trap. So newer players, playing Mutadawiya, Saxons, knowing those trade-offs and when they make sense, I think you got to have some games under your belt. So I would rate the Ordensstaat as being a more advanced board, and a board that a veteran Saga player would be drawn to try to make it work, knowing it's probably not as good as a straight up board where you don't have to kill your own guys to get your abilities to work. Most Saga boards don't have that going on. So how fun is this board for you and your opponent, would you say, compared to some?
I enjoy playing it a lot. One, it's got a huge amount of variety. With like I can't tell you there's one lineup, because I've played lots of different lineups. I've played pretty much 4 different lineups thoroughly, and they're all fun and they all seem to work. So one, you've got some versatility to it. Like you're not going to get bored. I know when I first started playing this, I had 4 points of Hearthguard and 2 points of Levy. And now I've got like a bunch of warriors, and I've got different types of Levy, because I started out with just bow. So it's fun that way. It's also very challenging. Like in a recent game, I was literally kind of deadlocked mentally. I think it was like turn 4 on what to do, and people may say it's a simple board because it's not. There's not like really complex combos. There's really complex battle maneuvers. And after staring at the board for probably a minute, I think my opponent was getting a little annoyed because I wasn't making up my mind.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it's like it became apparent what I needed to do, and it was Knockoaston, moving troops around, slay the Pagans. And when I did that, it increased my defense for the next turn and took out a Hearthguard unit that they probably didn't think I was going to be able to do. And when and it took like a minute of staring at the board configuration, like okay, how's that going to work? And it was sliding this Levy unit that way, moving this unit, and then all of a sudden, boom, charging in. And so it was really exciting and very rewarding to see that move. Because if I had done what I was originally going to do, I probably would have not done well on that turn. But yeah, it's fun. It's challenging, and you can definitely hurt yourself. And I agree with you. It's not a beginner board, I guess. It's a little bit more challenging than that, but it can be very rewarding. It's also one of the few factions, that can generate a lot of attack dice. It seems like in Age of Vikings, factions generated a lot more attack dice.
Sure, yeah. Scots,
Age
Vikings,
of Crusade,
off the top of my head. Norse Gales could do max out, at the 24 mark.
Exactly.
Crusades,
where with these guys, this is one of the few factions where, if you play your cards right, you can generate a lot of dice, but they made it so that you had to be very careful about doing that. So it's fun to play. And the mounted warlord lifeguard unit is great, and the heavy weapon mounted heavy weapon lifeguard unit. I mean, it's phenomenal, really fun to play.
Yeah, bring
it's
bring all the options when you're playing. Your opponent is bring it and decide.
It's different. So I mean, you can play it different ways, and so I enjoy playing it. The models are cool.
Yeah, I was going to ask what.
They're just. That's one of the reasons I started with them. Was like, man, the models are just.
Teutonics
awesome
are cool. Cool, iconic models. Regardless, what ranges do you use for your force?
I've got gripping beasts mainly. I think I got a few others from is it Crusader miniatures, I think. I can't remember, but I got a few others. Right now, I've been experimenting with the warriors a lot, and so I think I'm going to paint up maybe 1 or 2 points of mounted warriors.
Okay. Yeah, I could definitely see
Just
those guys being handy. So awesome. Well, I thank you for coming on, sharing your knowledge. It's been super helpful, I think, for me, visualizing how these guys operate, and I'm sure the folks at home will find value in it as well. If you play the Ordensstaat, let us know what, there's so many different options of troops. What do you, post below with what you like to play. Do you like a monthly Hearthguard or warriors? How many? 5 points of levy and 1 lifeguard warlord. I'll consider that one. Let us know if we got it wrong on some of these abilities here. If you think there's other uses, yeah, keep the discussion going. And yeah, man, I think that'll do it for now. Thanks again. We'll catch you next time. Maybe we'll see you on another one. I don't know. Probably won't ask you for a while, but you do know a lot and you seem to want to share it, so I appreciate that, and I think everybody else does too. So, all right, Patrick. Thanks, my man.
You're welcome.
We'll do it again. Bye-bye.
Saga!
If you'd like to see more Saga content, consider joining the Heathen Army over on Patreon or popping on down to the Saga Thursday Discord server. Links below. Thanks, guys.